Hello, you guys. I'm excited today. We're going to be reviewing my first summer doing door-to-door sales. And for any of you who've done door-to-door, you're going to get a laugh out of some of the things that I did. Looking back on my experiences, I've had a pretty interesting intro and introduction into this industry. It was definitely tougher than I ever imagined it was to be, and it doesn't need to be that way, just so you know. It doesn't need to be as hard as some of these people make it sound. But for me it was, and there were some reasons why it was, and I want to share those with you, and I want to also give you at the very end lessons learned. So anyone who's just getting into door-to-door, this podcast, today's discussion is 100% dedicated to you guys. I'm hoping that you're able to learn something from my mistakes and also just from my experiences, things that I was able to learn through the summer. So that way you're able to hit the ground running. You're not going to make the same mistakes I made. And for anyone who's done door-to-door, you'll get a kick out of some of the things I had to do to make it through my first summer. And I know you'll be able to relate. But the lessons are still going to be applied no matter how old or young or how long you've been doing this job for. So we'll kind of get started. We'll kind of start with my pre-story, how I got into door-to-door sales. Like many guys who are around my age who were doing this at the time, I just went into school. I went to BYU. And BYU, I just returned back from my LDS mission and had a good experience. And as I came back, a lot of my friends were talking to me about doing door-to-door sales, and I wasn't super interested at the time because previously I had tried doing a little bit of sales. So like going a step back, I had done Cutco sales right before I served my mission. And the Cutco, for those who don't know, are like these really nice cutlery knives, like super high-end, very expensive. And I did that for maybe 3 months, and I honestly did not like it at all. It just wasn't for me. Some people can kill it. For me, I just didn't like the sell was mostly me working with my network, and I just hated the feeling that I was making my friends and family buy from me because it was a relationship buy. It didn't really feel like I was actually selling them. So anyways, didn't resonate with me, so I quit shortly after, and I told myself, never ever again am I ever going to do sales. I was just not the kind of person I want to be. I'd much rather, I thought I'd do like accounting or engineering, doctor. Those are like the three things I told myself I was going to go into, and I didn't know what yet, but one of those three. Last thing on the list was definitely sales, and I had some friends who were trying to get me to think about it, and one day I remember one of them told me, it's like, dude, you can make $10,000 in one summer. And for me at the time, $10,000 was a lot of money. I was working as a teller at Zions Bank, made $10 an hour, and it was actually a lot of work. It wasn't easy, so I was working super hard. I was only working maybe 15, 20 hours a week, so I wasn't making a whole bunch of money. And so the idea of being able to make $10,000 in the summer, to me, just sounded insane. And there came a point where I was dating what was to be my future wife, and I knew I needed to get some money if we were going to get married, and so kind of decided that this was going to be the path I was going to take so I could make some money. And I felt like I had the experience with having served a mission. I could talk to people. I was really personable. This is going to be easy. I was going to crush it, be the top reps in my team. And yeah, that's what I think a lot of people probably think when they get into this job. So that's why I thought I got into it. Some of the red flags I didn't know were red flags at the time were, as I was going to work with this company, and just so you know, the company I worked for, I really actually huge respect for them, a great company. They just, at the time, were still kind of getting going and definitely didn't have the setup they have today. So for me, I didn't ever meet my manager. I didn't know who he was. It was just a family friend who'd referred me to go work for this company because he was a part owner in it. And he's like, hey, you should come work with my company. We're hiring guys like you. You do great. And we'll give you a little sign-on bonus. Here you go. And that was all I needed to know. I was like, okay, you can give me some money. Great. I'm going to sign up with you guys. So they gave me a little bit of money, and I decided to go work with these guys for the summer. Didn't know anything about pest control. That's all I knew, is that they sold pest control. Knew nothing about it. Didn't know who my managers were. Never met them. And I was going to be I was going to be knocking in Ohio, and I knew nothing about the East Coast area, and definitely nothing about Ohio. Super far, but I was excited. I was like, this is going to be a great opportunity. I'm going to take it. And I left. I just trusted in myself, and I was like, I'm going to do this. And my dad drove out with me there, and then I dropped him off at the airport. And I remember after I dropped him off, I had this gut-wrenching feeling in my stomach of like, what am I doing? And at the time, I was the only one there. I was the first one to get to the Ohio on my team. Not even my manager was there at the time. And so I showed up, and I was just in the apartment by myself for that first day. And I was just stressed. I was worried. I was kind of debating whether I'd made the right decision. And that all this fear started setting in. Anyways, ended up meeting my manager, great guy, love him to death. And he was awesome, took me around, said, hey, you can do this, you can do great, and kind of got me encouraged. So I said, okay, I can do this. And they took one full day where I trained, and I learned the pitch, and I practiced, and just over and over and over, just slammed it over until finally I could kind of spit it out. And that was the first time I'd ever had any introduction to pest control, the first time I'd ever heard the pitch. And I just practiced for a few hours, and I was one of the only guys in there who I guess was new, because I was the only one who seemed to have to practice the most. And I just went over and over and over until finally they were like, yeah, you're good enough, you can go out and knock. So I went first day, trained until about 5 or 6, and then the last 3 hours of the day, like, hey, just go knock this area and go kind of get some experience. And I remember that first day I went and tried knocking, and definitely didn't sell anything. I was a wreck. If I was to record myself back then, I would have laughed at myself today. But I was trying my best. I was just doing what I thought to do. I was just trying to sell pest control, and I didn't know what the crap I was doing. Didn't sell anything that first day. Went back out the next day. Didn't sell anything that whole day. Went out the third day and was knocking, and I went hard that day. I went out early, and I knocked the whole day. I was really focused. I was like, I got to sell something today. And I was starting to get a little bit of doubts in my head of maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was going to be at this and whatnot. And then after the third day, I sold nothing again. And I remember just feeling super distraught. And there's this one specific memory. So this is the fourth day. I went out to areas just trying to knock doors, trying to find someone who would listen to me. And I knocked this lady's house, and she just railed into me, yelled at me, and made me feel awful. And I was already feeling super dumb and super stupid, and I had no confidence. And this lady just pushed me over the edge, and I just remember going to the side of her house, and I just started crying. And I don't cry very often, but this was a moment where I just broke down. I couldn't even hold it back. I was like, this sucks. Everything I thought I was getting into is a total lie. They said I would make all this money. It's a joke. There's no way you can make money door to door. I don't know how these people do it. And I was like, I'm going home. This sucks. And I went to my car. I went and I called my dad, and I told him through my tears, I can't do this anymore. This is way too hard. No one is even kind of nice to me. No one's even interested. And he listened to me while it kind of let me vent it out. And then he just said, give it a month. And at the end of the month, if you still feel the same way, you can go home. And I really looked up to my dad, and I wanted his approval. And so I decided I'd suck it up. I was like, fine, I'll do 1 month, but I'm coming home the next day. He's like, all right, sounds good. So I told myself I'd stay out there for the whole month, and then at the end of the month, so I was there in May, and June 1st, I was going home. That was what was in my mind. So what happened then after that is, because in my mind I was leaving June 1st, I was like, you know what, I'm going to change some things. I'm not going to stress so much about my area. I'm not going to stress about who I'm talking to, whether I sell, because at the moment I was just stressed I wasn't making any money. I was losing money, and I didn't know how I was going to survive out there. And I decided I needed to change something. And at that week, I know my manager, he was seeing that I was struggling, and he gave me a book that I highly recommend for anyone who does door-to-door sales, and it's called Attitude is Everything by Jeff Keller. Great book, super simple. It's maybe 100 pages, and it is a little bit older. I think it was probably written in the 90s. But the whole idea and the concept behind it is everything in your life is the success that you're going to have is going to be based on the attitude that you have with it. And so he just gave the example of, you can focus on the negative and you're going to have negative results, or you can focus on the positive and you'll be surprised at the positive results that'll happen in your life. And he says, and it only will happen with your attitude. You have to change your attitude before anything else will change in your career and in your goals, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. And anyway, and he's had lots of different examples, but that was the one thing that really stood out to me is I was the one who controlled my feelings. No one else could make me feel a way that I by not buying or yelling at me. They couldn't make me feel that way just by doing these things to me. I was the one in control of my emotions. And if I wanted to be positive, I could choose to be positive. Or if I wanted to be negative and let these external factors affect me, then I could let that happen. And I decided I wasn't going to let that happen anymore. But in order to make sure that I stayed positive and stayed happy, I needed to do something. I needed to have fun. And I was not having fun knocking doors. I actually was hating it. And so I was like, how am I going to have fun knocking doors so I can be in a positive attitude? And as I thought, I just randomly came up with this idea. I was like, you know what? I'm going to just talk in a British accent to every person I talk to. And I know nothing about a British accent. I am not an actor. I don't know how to speak in a British accent for nothing. My accent sucks, but I decided I was going to do it anyways. And I remember that next day, I was like, I'm going to do the whole day only talking a British accent. And it was either my first or second door I talked to. This guy comes out and I start talking to him in my accent. The whole time he was smiling at me, just almost laughing. And he didn't buy. I just remember him being so happy with me and being super kind and then saying, yeah, I'm just not interested, but thanks for coming. And it was the first time anyone had ever like smiled, laughed, appreciated me being there, like trying to work. And I had this change of mindset. I'm like, wow, this is working. Like, I guess people buy people with a British accent. And that day, I think I sold like 3 or 4 accounts. And I was like blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, like it's because I'm speaking in a British accent. And so for the next month, so the rest of the month of May and even part of June, about a month and a half, I only spoke in a British accent to every single area I went to. And it was pretty ridiculous. But in my mind, that was the reason why people bought. It wasn't because of me. It wasn't my pitch. It was because of my British accent. And that was, I truly believed it. And so that's why I did it everywhere I went. I spoke in a British accent to everyone. And it got so bad to a point to where I would have to mark we had this little basic map of all the areas you had. And I would just have on my map all the areas that I had talked in a British accent. I put a B in it. So I could remember, because I'd have to go back to these areas. And so whenever I went back to those areas, I had to remember to speak in a British accent in those areas. So pretty funny. It lasted a long time. And eventually I started realizing that it wasn't the British accent that was making people buy from me. It was my attitude. And for whatever reason, when I spoke in a British accent, it just put me in a really good state. I was really happy. I was really excited. I wasn't as pushy. I wasn't as salesy. I was just having fun. And guess what? People buy from people who are having fun, who come off confident. And that's exactly what that did for me. And so I realized that, hey, I don't need to talk in a British accent. I can talk in my normal voice, be Tyler, be authentic me, but just keep the same everything else. Keep positive attitude, be confident, be happy, be excited for being there. And as I started doing that, I was able to continue selling without having to force a British accent on every door I went to. And then I started enjoying the job way, way more. So that is my story. And by the end of the summer, I was doing good. I had I would say a decent summer. It wasn't anything phenomenal. I sold 128 my first summer. And back then, that was 9 years ago when I did that. And for me, back then, that was really good. I thought that was a great summer. I think our top guy on the team maybe did right under 200. So I was happy. I was like, I'd sold 128 accounts, and I ended up leaving a little early too because I was getting married at the end of August, so I had to leave a couple weeks early. But had a great experience, and at the end of it, I realized I realized the secrets. I was like, if I was to come back again this next year, I would crush it. And so I made the commitment. I was like, I'm going to do this again. And the next summer, I doubled. I just sold 250 accounts. I did way better. And so that's part of my story of how I got into this and how I got through my first summer is, speaking my British accent. And I wish I had some recordings of this and I could show some of them to you guys. I don't have any of them, unfortunately. But it was one of those moments. One of the toughest things I'd ever done was that first week of knocking doors. I had such different expectations versus the reality of what it ended up being. And so I want to share with you guys lessons learned from this. And for anyone who's just getting into door-to-door, this is definitely going to be helpful. And for anyone who's done door-to-door for a while, this is just a good reminder of things that are helping you. And if you have recruits underneath you, to help remind you of what it felt like to be a first-year rep and what it feels like that first time you're going to knock doors. Try to remember those feelings because it's going to help them to be able to to relate with you, and you'll be able to connect with them on a different level instead of just being like, hey, why aren't you selling 8 accounts a day? Like, this is easy. And realizing that, no, it takes some time. It's a process. So the first thing I want to say is the biggest mistake I had that I didn't even know was I had done zero preparation in getting out there for the summer. I just showed up and just thought I could learn everything in one day and just start killing it. Like, they would just train me there. That's not the way you want to do it. Before you get onto the doors, you want to have already learned the pitch. You want to have had your managers go over it with you. You need to have done some role plays with your managers, so that way you're able to get the practices, get those moments, those weird sayings, those weird ums and uhs, and out of your pitch, and being able to have them say, hey, you need to stop saying this, you need to start saying this, and they're going to be able to help get you on the path of at least getting the basics down. And you want to do that way before you ever start knocking your first door. So that's the first thing. Start preparing for the summer, learn your pitch, meet your manager, get to know your team a little bit. Hopefully they have like an office or a location or some activities, things that are allowing you to meet the team and being able to be a part of them. And that's really important to being able to have a successful summer, is being able to connect with your team, because you're going to spend a lot of time with them. And so that's one thing that helped me with that I know would have helped me if I had done. So, and I know it's helped my guys now, as I really put a hard emphasis on pre-summer trainings, weekly trainings. We do sales blitz now. We do a lot of stuff that helps them get set up so when they hit the doors, they've already experienced this multiple times. And it's nothing new. You're able to hit the ground running at that point. And they just need some more repetition. So that's the first lesson learned. Make sure you're preparing for your summer. And even if you've done this for a while, don't just show up the first day. If you show up the first day and haven't been pitching for months, you're going to be rusty. You're going to have like this hard adjustment. It's a lot easier if you just start prepping like at least once a week, something with your team. Start training, start practicing your pitch. Do it in the mirror, do it in the shower, whatever you need to do. The next thing you want to do is focus on keeping a positive attitude. And that was what changed for me, is changing my attitude. In whatever you're at, this is something I constantly am always working on in sales, is being able to focus on having a good attitude. Anytime I start realizing my attitude is not where it needs to be, I usually just take a quick breather. I need to refresh it, because there's no point in me knocking doors in a bad attitude. I've just learned that that's not going to help me. I'm all about grinding, all about working hard and pushing through the pain. But if my attitude is in the wrong place, then it doesn't matter how hard I'm working. I'm not going to sell, because once I do find that potential client, they're not going to want to buy from me because I'm in a terrible attitude. So that's the one thing that always has to stay consistent, is staying positive no matter what's happening throughout the day. And just really focus on that in your mind, saying, hey, I'm going to do everything in my power to stay positive. I'm going to try to have fun with this job, whatever that means, whatever having fun for you is. The most fun you'll have is by selling. That's the easiest way to have fun. So that's what I encourage all my guys. There's nothing more fun than selling. So make that your goal. But there's days and there's maybe hours that you're not going to be selling, and that's common and that's normal. So just keep finding ways to stay positive. Find the little wins. Find the little things that make you happy. And you kind of say, this is cool. I really like this house. Maybe one day I'll own a house like this. Like, find ways to stay positive, so that way you can keep going and finding that person. So when you do find him, you're ready to sell him. And then after you make sure you have a positive attitude, the third thing I want you to remember is be patient with yourself. I was not patient with myself. I expected myself to be selling like minimum 2 to 3 accounts every day after my first day. I was like, this is easy. I can sell at least 2 accounts, pest control. Like, that seems like a no-brainer. I should be selling. And I was in my mind thinking I was going to sell like 5 accounts every day starting day one. And I just didn't realize that it's a process. And there's definitely guys who can do it. It's not that it's impossible, but there is a process behind it. And you need to be patient with yourself in that beginning, especially. Don't expect yourself to go hit the ground running, especially if you haven't been doing your prep. You haven't been doing your training like you should have been. And even if you have been, just be patient. Like, say, hey, this first couple weeks, I'm here to just learn. I know this is going to take a second. This is a new thing. Knocking doors is not a comfortable thing to begin with. And there's a process to getting someone to buy. So be patient with yourself, and your team will be patient with you as long as you're grinding, as long as you're trying. I promise they're going to be happy to see you working hard. And if they're not happy for you, and if they're not being patient with you, then you should come work with us, because we're going to be more impatient and super happy with you. And so be patient with yourself. And the last thing I just wanted to share with you is, if I can do it, honestly anyone can do it. Like if I look at myself, my first summer compared to where I am today, probably like the one thing, if I could choose like one thing that's completely changed in me, is the level of confidence in my life. And it's confidence in my abilities of not just selling, just confidence in what I'm capable of, what I'm worth, what I can do. I believe in myself so much more than I ever did before. And I know when I first started this summer, I thought I had confidence, and I lost it really, really quick once I realized that I was not the shiz that I thought I was. And this job teaches you how to do hard things and to grind through the pain and to not let no get in your mind. And it's really just strengthens you mentally. So that way, anytime you're going through a trial in your life, you're able to make it through. And that's the thing that I've loved the most about this job. And I know if the young Tyler version could do this job and make it through that first summer and still be doing it today, like you too can make it. You too can, do this 10 plus years. And if that's not what you want to do, that's fine. It wasn't what I originally thought I wanted to do, but as I've learned and as I've found, I enjoy the schedule. I like the lifestyle that this provides for me. And so, yeah, this is what I want to do now. I'm excited to be able to go and work 4 or 5 months of the year and have the rest of the time off so I can focus on things that I enjoy. And to me, that's exciting. And so if that's something that excites you, if that's a lifestyle that you're wanting and needing, then knowing that this young kid who was speaking in a British accent, knew nothing about pest control, was able to make it through his first summer, like you 100% can do it too. And if you have more resources than that and you've been practicing and training and you're more confident than me, then absolutely you're going to destroy me. You're going to do so well, and you're going to be able to have an awesome first summer. And then from there on out, I promise it's just going to double. You're going to just grow and you're going to grow and you're going to have an awesome experience. And that is my story with door-to-door sales, how I got into it and wanted to share that with you guys. I always like to end with this. If you guys enjoyed this, please share. These podcasts are the best way they grow is through sharing. So whether it's wherever you're listening to it, if you could pass it along, that'd be awesome. And if you are doing door-to-door sales, if you're on a team right now, you're unhappy with where you're at, or you're just getting into door-to-door and you're looking for a great environment to be in, you should definitely check us out. We're called Rio Marketing. We have a website. You can check us out there. It's try d2dsales.com. Or you can check us out on our Instagram at Rio Marketing Sales, and you can message us there. We'd be happy to reach out. And honestly, looking for guys who are looking to grow and have this type of mindset of grinding hard and making the most of their life. Until the next channel, thanks.